Alan Wake. Prologue. Wake didn't see the hitchhiker until it was too late. It was night and he was tired, driving down the coastal road toward the lighthouse, driving too fast, as usual. The hitchhiker seemed to appear right out of the darkness, standing there in the middle of the road, just staring into Wake's oncoming headlights. Wake didn't even have time to hit the brakes, reacting only after he heard the thump of metal against flesh. Shaken, head pounding, Wake got out of the car to check on the hitchhiker. The front end was splattered with blood. The hood crumpled. Steam rose from the crushed radiator. Wake bent over the body of the hitchhiker, the two of them caught in the headlines, now as though on stage. The man was dead. Wake put his hand on the hitchhiker's bloody clothes, wanting to apologize, to explain, to ask the man why he had just stood there unmoving as Wake hurtled at him. It wasn't the hitchhiker who was going to have to explain his actions, though. There were no skid marks on the road, Mr. Wake, the police would say.
Why didn't you slam the brakes? Didn't you see him? You're alright, you're distracted. You think we all can explode? Just for the record, exactly how fast were you going, Mr. Wake? Had you been drinking before the accident? Taken any pills? You look tired.
A raven cried out from a nearby tree, and Wake turned, seeing only its eyes in the darkness. When he looked back, the hitchhiker was gone, disappeared. Wake actually put his head onto the spot where the hitchhiker had been lying, feeling around as if he might find a hole. A deflated, blow-up hitchhiker, some sort of insurance, scam figured, something. There was nothing and nobody there, just the pavement, cool in the night air. Wake stood, knees shaking. He looked around, then pushed the car to the side of the road. It was a write-off. He started walking toward the lighthouse in the near distance, trying to stay upright, to stay steady. The man had been there. Wake had hit him, killed him. So where was the body? Wake turned back. His car was still there, water leaking onto the pavement, the hazard lights flashing against the night. Up ahead, a streetlight lit up a wooden pedestrian walkway that wound its way to the lighthouse. He still wasn't sure what he was going to tell the police when he reported the accident. A streetlight exploded as Wake walked under it. Son of a bitch, he thought, covering his head as tiny bits of broken glass drifted down around him like snow. He looked back to his car. Froze. The hitchhiker was there, standing in front of the car, covered in blood and shadows. He had something in his hand. An axe. He strode towards Wake. Wake couldn't move. A streetlight farther down the road exploded, then another, and another still.
You don't even recognize me, do you?
Said the hitchhiker, disgust.
You think you can play with people's lives? Kill them when it adds to the drama.
He hefted the axe, his clothes spotted with gore.
Well, you're in the story now, Wake, and you're going to suffer for your art. Let's see how you like that.
Wake recognized the hitchhiker now. He was a character in a story Wake had written when he was first starting out. An innocent man run down at the start of a story, a driver walking away in the night. He had never finished the story, but his character had now escaped off the page and was coming for vengeance. Wake started to run, his feet pounding on the wooden walkway as he raced toward the lighthouse.
What's your hurry?
Mocked the hitchhiker coming after him.
I thought you liked horror stories.
Wake kept running, his footsteps drumming on the wooden slats. The lighthouse, a beacon in the night.
What kind of writer are you?
Called the hitchhiker. The planks in the walkway were cracked and weathered, whole sections missing so that Wake had to jump over the gaps. Up ahead was a rickety footbridge that stretched over a chasm. The ocean crashed on the boulders, below in a spray of foam. Mr. Wake! A young man in a college letterman's jacket waved from the far side of the footbridge. Hurry! Wake glanced behind him. The hitchhiker was closing in, the axe cleaving in the air. Hurry, Mr. Wake! Shouted the young man. Wake ran, partway across the bridge. His leg broke through one of the rotting planks. He clung to the railing, pulled himself up. He limped across the remainder of the bridge. The young man grabbed his arm, led him toward a dark cabin at the base of the lighthouse. It's me, Mr. Wake. Clay Stewart. Don't you remember? I don't know you. Wake shook him off.
You're a joke, Wake.
Shouted the hitchhiker halfway across the bridge. Get inside, said Stewart, pushing Wake up the steps of the cabin. Turn on the lights. I'll stop him. Wake rushed into the cabin and fumbled for the light switch. He cried out as the door slammed shut behind him. Through the window, he could see Stewart standing by the front porch, holding a revolver as the hitchhiker approached. Stewart! Shouted Wake. Get in here! Stay where you are, Mr. Wake, said Stewart, voice cracking. Just pull all the lights on. Come inside, Wake tugged at the door, trying to open it, but it stayed shut. Stewart! The hitchhiker rushed at Stewart, swinging the axe with both hands. Wake struggled against the door, but couldn't budge it. Stewart fired the revolver. The bullet staggered the hitchhiker for an instant, but he shrugged it off. Stewart fired again. Why won't you die? Stewart wailed, emptying the revolver, each shot hitting the hitchhiker. Wake watched as the hitchhiker hurtled forward and drove his axe deep into Stewart's chest, spitting the gold letter on the young man's jacket. Stewart let out an awful moan and sank to his knees. No! Shouted Wake, beating on the window so hard it vibrated. The hitchhiker braced his foot against Stewart's chest and jerked the axe free. Its steel head dripped in blood. Stewart fell forward onto his face. The hitchhiker lifted the axe again, swung it down with all his strength into the center of the young man's back. Wake finally found the light switch. He flicked it on, but the light stayed off. He flicked the switch off and on, but the cabin remained dark. The hitchhiker wrenched the axe blade out of Stewart's back and started to slowly walk up the stairs to the front door of the dark cabin. The cabin began to shake gently at first, then harder and harder, grinding on the foundation, as though gripped by some enormous hand. The hitchhiker disappeared from the front porch as though his work were done and he was no longer needed. There was a roaring in his ears, and Wake wasn't sure if it came from outside the cabin or inside his own head. The window slowly cracked, then blew out, the wind howling through the cabin. The door flew up, upending furniture, scattering papers. The cabin groaned, started to come apart. Light poured in through the collapsing walls, and Wake ran down the front steps onto the dead grass around the cabin, out into the light. The roaring sound was gone now. Wake blinked, and a powerful light that had hovered over him caught. There was a form inside the light, a man, a space explorer, a deep-sea diver. The figure spoke to him, the voice sounding like it was coming from a great distance away, as though the diver was struggling to be heard.
I have something important to tell you.
Wake tried to speak, but the light, it was too bright, scattering his thoughts.
It goes like this, for he did not know that beyond the lake he called home lies a deeper, darker ocean green, where waves are both wilder and more serene. To its ports I've been, to its ports I've been. Do you understand?
An ocean green? No, said Wake. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I entered your dream to teach you. The darkness is dangerous. It's sleeping now, but when it feels you coming, it will wake up.
What will wake up? Wake looked around. The hitchhiker was back, the bloody axe in his hand. He stood on the very edge of the light, just inside the darkness, eager to cross over. As Wake watched, the darkness grew blacker, more intense, shiny as oil. Wake looked back at the diver.
You are safe in the light. The darkness cannot hurt you here.
The light flickered. Wake screamed.